This particular StarCraft 2 series I've been wanting to check out for a little while. So this is a best of 5 of Protoss versus Zerg that was recently played during Dreamhack Atlanta. Game number 1, it takes place on the map Cosmic Sapphire, and spawning right here in the bottom right hand corner, playing with the blue Zerg drones from Canada, we have Scarlett. Her opponent in the opposite corner, the man who played more games than anybody else at this particular tournament. With the red Protoss pieces from South Korea, we're looking at NightMare's main Nexus. Now, NightMare honestly had an insane run at this tournament, okay? Which is why I want to highlight him a little bit more, because he's been looking pretty damn good over the last couple of months. However, in the very first phase of the tournament, he did have some troubles. Since he didn't qualify straight for the main event, he had to fight his way through the open bracket. Now, the first phase of the open bracket was a 4-man group stage. Now, the open bracket basically means that you could technically sign up for the tournament. Obviously, they did have a limited amount of seats, and I guess they did, like, I don't know, maybe rank the players by MMR or something along those lines, because it would kind of suck if one of the pro gamers would fly on out and then somehow, some way, not make it through to the open bracket because a random Bronze League guy decided to sign up. So I think there were some criteria, but essentially anyone half decent could play in this tournament if they, you know, got there, right? So in the first phase of the tournament, NightMare was in a group together with Silky, Kelazur, and Azur. Now, Kelazur obviously has been looking very strong over the last couple of months, but there's no denying that NightMare was expected to either win that group or at the very least go out in second place. However, he ended up getting third. I don't know if it was nerves or maybe it was, I don't know, the stress at the tournament or jet lag or he just wasn't feeling comfortable. But in the past, he would have just been straight up eliminated from this particular tournament. Luckily though, there was a knockout bracket. Now the knockout bracket is a single elimination bracket where you have to play a bunch of best of 3s. And if you win like 6 of them, I think you can claw yourselves back into the actual main event. But obviously, you know, the other players that come into the lower bracket as well, they, yeah, will probably get better over time because there are people that get eliminated at one of the later stages of the tournament. Long story short, that is where NightMare started to be on fire. So first off, he 2-0'd Padre, no idea who that is. Then he 2-0'd Rengen, also no idea who that is. Then he went up against Petit Drogo, he won 2-0. He went up against Nice, he won 2-1. He went up against the Chinese Terran Time, who's been looking very strong. He 2-0'd him. He went up against Gung Fu Banda, also 2-0'd him, and then he faced off in the main tournament once again. He faced off against Neeb in a best of 5, where he ended up winning 3-1. Now at this point in the tournament, he's facing off against Scarlett. Now Scarlett, I mean, she definitely did not have an easy time to this particular phase of the tournament, but she certainly didn't have to play nearly as many games. So that is always something to keep in mind, because yeah, stamina and focus. I mean, if you have to play hours and hours and hours of tournament games, it's a little bit different when you have to go up against someone who's only played, well, at least compared to you, a handful of games. Either way, NightMare mixing it up in this particular game as well. Over the last couple of months, we've seen a lot of Protoss players steering away from that Stargate style, and NightMare apparently no different, going for a Dark Shrine opener here together with the robotics facility. How many gateways do we have? We've only got 1 gateway at this point. We're gonna need a couple more gateways here, NightMare. I mean, a double Dark Templar opener would be a little bit shaky. Usually we see either 3 or 4 gateways with this build. Although I don't think this is actually the fastest possible Dark Templar, because normally I think you could finish this up a little bit quicker. Either way, a lot of those Protoss build orders lately have been anti-timings, where Protoss players know that the opponents are so good at dealing with the most optimized versions of these builds that they're purposefully delaying it, which is kind of funny, but we saw that really cool build, I believe, from, recall right over here. Is he going to be able to get him out? He will not. We saw that really good build from MaxPax, where he went for both Adepts as well as Dark Templar to harass the opponent, and I actually thought it was a really sick build. He did that on Cosmic Sapphire as well. Casted that series not too long ago. Either way, the Prism is flying across right now. There are indeed 2 gateways coming up here, but these are certainly not going to finish up before this Prism gets across. That means we're just going to warp in 2 Dark Templar? Is that what we're going to do? Well, thank you for the donation. Your offer will be accepted. Thank you, Scarlett. Scarlett at this point, though. Ooh, okay. We're rushing out the Blink upgrade. Interesting. Anyways, Scarlett, she is in a pretty comfortable spot at this point. Ready to sacrifice some HP on these queens just to push back that prism. By the way, I do know who ends up winning this particular series, but I haven't seen the games. Just, you know, full transparency there. Yeah, I haven't seen the game, so, you know, I'm not faking my excitement over a creep tumor sniper or anything like that. I hate it whenever people do that. Anyhow, it is going to be a quick Dark Templar Blink opener, which is kind of interesting. Most of the time, Zerg players at this point, they would expect that Archon transition, right? So, you see a couple Dark Templar early on, and then obviously they're going to morph into Archons and come back to get juggled for a little while longer. 2 Dark Templar, okay. Just as, like, part of the main army? Is that what we're doing? Interesting, they're just kind of chilling here. Yeah, I think they've been tasked with defending the bases. That is kind of fun. Still a bunch of probes are still gonna fall here though, so, you know, maybe not ideal. Anyways, Blink is just about to finish up. It is a long upgrade. So, this has been 6 minutes in the making, and so far, not a whole lot has been achieved just yet by Nightmare. I actually think that Scarlett is reading this really, really nicely. I mean, if this was just a creep clearing squad, I think we could have done that with lower tier units. But Scarlett is reading her opponent like a book so far. Already at, well, full saturation here. On 3 bases, and she could be thinking about taking, yeah, the 4th base here very quickly as well. This would be the appropriate timing. She's got herself the Overlord Speed coming up. That is for the Overseers, obviously. She's gonna go into the Roach upgrade, and now also the +1 Missile upgrade. If Scarlett just makes a whole lot of Roaches, I'm not exactly sure what Nightmare is gonna be able to do against it, but he does have a lot of Dark Templar. Is he gonna blink on top of that hatchery? Is that the plan? Is that, I don't know if that's okay, we're gonna blink on top of the detection. Okay, that's nice, but look, there's more. These units fly. It's a cool attempt, but I think that this is a little bit too late. Scarlett probably also wondering at this point what in the world's happening in this game. She has essentially gotten like a 60 supply lead for, well, what seems to be free. Obviously, she's done a great job there, but let me take a little bit of water. All right. My voice is working again. Hell yeah, like that. Well, Dark Templar still being obnoxious here, though. I'm just a little bit concerned here for the big roach bush that is inevitably going to come across the map. Yeah, what exactly is available to deal with that? We have Blink on the Stalkers, but that's all we've got. So the problem here is that the economy, yeah, has just been amazing for Scarlett for a little while. Now, it could be doable, but she's also bringing the queens across. Looks like we're gonna poop a little bit of creeper on the ground. And despite the fact that Nightmare went for a really creative start here, I don't think he's gonna be able to hold just the sheer amount of stuff that Scarlett has. Like, sometimes you can get carried away with all the fanciness, right? You can get carried away with all your cool build orders and strategies that you've got in mind, but more stuff still beats less stuff in a game of StarCraft. And since Zerg got straight up to 3-base economy in this game, with barely making any army, without Immortals, I just don't see how Nightmare is going to be able to hold this. Okay, well, battery overcharge at this point is done. Now there's enough as well to just push forward. Corrosive Biles do connect with all of those shield batteries. Cute start right here from Nightmare, but yeah, you're gonna have to play a little bit differently against somewhere of the caliber of Scarlett. You're like, this would work against me, okay, but you're gonna have to do something a little bit differently against someone as good as her if you want to win the game. Alright, our next game is on Inside and Out. Standard openers here from the both of them. Maybe I should pay attention whenever I say such things. Game number 2, we find ourselves on Inside and Out, and would you look at that? There's a drone moving across the map. Sometimes I autopilot maybe a little bit too much, huh? Alright, Scarlett, going for one of the builds that we've seen her play a little bit. Guess what she's gonna do, guys? You will never suspect what's gonna come up next in this particular game. She's gonna go for a hatchery block? No way, man. That's crazy. Alright, this is something she likes to do. And I actually am a big fan of this opener too, just because it throws the Protoss players off. What exactly does Nightmare do? Well, first off, we're going for a second gateway. We're then gonna go Cybercore. I'm assuming we're gonna pull 4 probes in total. I'm gonna say 4. We're gonna not pull 4 probes. I think you need to pull 4. I mean, that's been the established standard, but apparently the Koreans do like this, yeah, a little bit differently. A lot of the European Protoss players, North Americans, I guess, as well, they would, well, yeah, they would pull 4 probes. And with 4 probes, you can get yourself enough damage on that hatchery to then be able to finish it off as well with the Zealot. Now you're going to be delayed for a little while. That being said, it is, of course, double gateways here. So NightMare is going to be spending his money over in those structures for the foreseeable future. Is it going to be Adepts? Yep. Adepts, certainly a great choice until link speed is done. And with an opener like this, Zerg link speed is not going to be super quick. Alright. Is she just going to let it finish? I almost feel like you can just let it finish. I'm not sure exactly what the best move is. Normally, Zerg players get the Knight. Yeah, she's just going to let it finish. So the problem is, even if this now gets cleaned up, it's still gonna leave a lot of residue behind, right? And Nexi can only be built when the ground is pristine. You cannot possibly expect the Nexus to come up right on top of just a tiny little bit of creep, right? So this does slow things down for quite a while here, and honestly, it's almost forcing NightMare into a one-base opener here for a long while. Like, this creep is gonna be gone at like the 4-minute mark, but already Zerg is happily expended behind it. Anyways, Zerglings tasked with pushing away those slow Adepts. Good control right there, actually, as well, by the Canadian Zerg. She's gonna go into the link speed upgrade, and it's once again a Twilight Council opener. Oh, okay. He was thinking about Blink, but instead it's gonna be Glaive Adept. Now, if that one Adept would have fallen, that would have actually hurt him quite a bit. Luckily, here NightMare managed to keep that one alive. He's looking around right now for third hatches, and honestly, you're almost leaning on the opponent having a third hatchery out, because... okay. Now this could get some work done. Yeah, if there would be a third hatchery, I think that Scarlett would be in a lot of trouble. I mean, she's already kind of struggling here. But as long as she sticks around on just 2 bases, and she's got 1 base over the Protoss, and, well, she's scouting it out right here with an Overlord. As long as she's got 1 base ahead... Oh, no, he loses a couple of Adepts. Yeah, she's got to feel really good. So this is awful right here for NightMare. Honestly, this entire early game is a disaster. If you're gonna go for the Glaive Adept opener, you really cannot afford to lose any Adepts. I was talking about 1 as if it was the end of the world. Now we saw him losing 4. So Scarlett must be feeling very comfortable here. There is a chance that she over-drones and that a bunch of follow-up Adepts can still work out. So now she is thinking about taking a third hatchery. But honestly... yeah, someone as good as her, I don't expect that to be a problem. And NightMare, once again, decides to go for the Dark Shrine. Alright. Yeah, apparently Dark Templar are going to be the name of the game. So, Glaive. Yeah, Glaive Adepts together with Dark Templar. It could be good. I'm just a little afraid that it isn't, you know? As long as the Zerg has got units out, it shouldn't be that much of a problem. Don't know if the Sentry is scouted, but the Sentry is also a pretty big indicator that... usually, there's not going to be that aggressive of a push coming out, because you need energy on it. And obviously, when you have, well, a couple of hallucinated units flying around as well, you can scout out what's happening. But that's, well, at the same time, also a big indicator to the Zerg that you're not going to get aggressive yourself anytime soon. Anyhow, Scarlett just making as many drones as she can while, yeah, teching up slowly. Now... she doesn't have a lot of detection. As a matter of fact, the only detector here is this one Spore Crawler. And the Dark Templar are going to come out here very soon. Nice dance moves right here by the Stalker. Where are the DTs being warped in? Oh, they're warped in just at the third base. Okay. The Invisible Men. Move commanding towards the other side of the map on purpose, just to give the Zerg player as little time, as little information about this as possible. There's one Spore Crawler out. There's no Laridon yet either. So maybe NightMare. Honestly, he's been doing a pretty good job here. Yeah, just keeping these units undetected, but this is very much so up to Scarlett. Okay, he's gonna go after the hatchery. We're gonna have to move that Spore. Yep, Spore Crawler is coming over. Is there any energy on any of these queens? There is energy coming up on one of them here. The second one also has got a little bit of energy, not too far behind. But I think the hatchery is dead. Problem is, though, it's gonna come at the cost of... all 3 Dark Templar. And that, again, is not that great of a trade right there in the end. Because it's not like the hatchery was mining, right? It wasn't really that much happening here. 3 Dark Templar, pretty expensive. But on the back of this, NightMare did get a third Nexus up. As a matter of fact, right now he's 8 workers ahead as well. Scarlett now forced into this really awkward game where I think she's planning on going for a push. The Lara right now being used really just for detection, just for the Overseers. But it might just work. How much army does Protoss have at this point? 3 Adepts, 3 Stalkers, and a Sentry. And a Zealot. And 1 Dark Templar. But I mean, what I'm getting at is that it's not a whole lot. Okay, she was thinking about going through those rocks. Apparently, okay, deciding better of it as she wants to go towards the natural instead. Keep in mind, though, static defense is really good. Robo facility, though, is only about 90% of the way done, so she wants to really wrap around the units over here. Okay, good. Force fields. Those are also the only force fields we're going to see. Battery overcharge being used. Are we going to commit right here regardless of the battery overcharge? Apparently so. We do now see that getting biled down, and, well, the Zerkings were on top of it, too. I've got a feeling that Scarlett just has enough. Yeah. So this time around, Scarlett is forcing the creative start right here from NightMare. But in the end, more stuff is better than less stuff. This is the age-old adage in StarCraft 2. Now, there is 1 Dark Templar, okay, being annoying in the natural of the Zerg. But I don't think you can really play 2 bases anymore. Plus, there's still nothing to properly address this army. Battery overcharge is gonna be available again in about 45 seconds or so, which is nice. But I don't think it's gonna be in time. Scarlett just flooding out on the map with more and more units. Raining biles wherever she can. Another pylon goes down, and that's that shield battery now unpowered. Ravagers are really thick, so they can't really get easily through that wall, but they will get through there eventually. Sidestepping the Ravagers too, so they don't bile themselves. And right now, yeah, this is all she wrote. Literally. Scarlett writing on her keyboard right now, wanting to get her opponent out of this game, and I think she'll be able to achieve exactly that. NightMare processing the loss at this point. He definitely knows that there's no way to win the game, but you gotta think, right? What exactly went wrong here? Okay, I'll pay attention this time around, okay? Everything's normal. Look, we've got a hatchery on the low ground. We've got a gateway on the low ground on the other side of the map. Cybercore is coming up as well. Alright, I'll slow the game back down to regular game speed. Excellent. So, you gotta be second-guessing yourself right now in your NightMare, though. You must be wondering, okay, what exactly went wrong in that previous game? Honestly, losing those Adepts really sucked, right? I guess he felt like he was forced to go across the map with the units that he's made, even though he had the Glaives upgrade coming up. He wanted to force units out of the opponent, but then eventually he forced a lot of units out of Scarlett, and she was like, thank you very much. I'll just surround the Adepts that you've sent across the map, and now you don't have Glaives done. And once you do, you're gonna have, well, another 4 Adepts available, when you really would have liked to have 8. Anyhow, NightMare not really changing the wheel with the wheel. He's not really changing his strategy in this particular game here at all. Going straight into the Twilight Council once again. The Twilight Council is very strong, but so far I am not necessarily the biggest of fans. So we finish it now with 60 gas in the bank. So it's 100 for Glaive Adept. Okay. I was gonna say, it's 100 for Glaive Adepts, 150 for Blink. I guess 100 for Charge too, but anyhow. 150 for the Dank Templar. All of those things are nice, but it's gonna be Glaive Adepts. I am a little concerned right here for NightMare. Because honestly, at this point, I don't really think that Scarlett is gonna be too bothered by a builder like this. I mean, she seemed well prepared for it in the previous game, and that one had a bit of a funky start. I mean, she forced out, obviously, that hatchery on the natural of the opponent, but it's... yeah, this is a very comfortable situation for Zerg. You know what I mean? Like, this is the type of style you practice a lot, and you'll know exactly what to expect and when to make units. So usually, I don't really expect Glaive Adept openers to deal a whole lot of damage anymore in 2022. Maybe I'm mistaken, but this is one of those well-established builds that Zergs really do know how to play against. She decided to go for a second gas. So normally what you do when you're not entirely sure is you go for a Spine Crawler, for example. Spine Crawlers can be super helpful. But if you have the creep available... okay, now that was a nice little move right there, my NightMare. Pushing back the move out of that prism actually helps out a lot. But she does go for Spores right now, okay? How many queens does she have? She's got 5. Unit production is coming up right now. Resonating Glaives is done. Oh, I like what NightMare's doing, though. He's sitting in the tall grass there for a while, and that prism was unscouted. There is a chance that this would work out. Normally, you want the queens a little bit further forward, shooting away at that prism, but now the prism is suddenly showing up. Are you gonna commit? I think you do. Yeah, you do commit here with Glaive to Depths. Roaches are coming on the back of this, though, and so far, no drones have gone down. NightMare decides to shade backwards. A couple of workers here are starting to find their deaths. Okay, they decide to stay into the main base. One worker. Actually, it's only one worker in total this entire game so far. So this is Scarlett being caught off guard, right? This is Scarlett in full-on crisis management. And so far, it's going pretty dang well. Good wraparound right over there. Drones over here running away right now. And obviously, Scarlett definitely not mining a whole lot. And without a whole lot of mining, eventually, if these adepts keep shading around... Okay, maybe this is doable. Okay, eventually she, you know, would start running out of units to produce, because there's not a whole lot of mining. If we have a look right now at the income, yep, that is well reflected there. Even a little bit of Spore Crawler micro coming in. Okay, so this was the opener. It's not entirely done yet. NightMare might commit for another push. Yeah, he's actually in a pretty good spot right now. I take it back. Maybe this was more successful than I thought it was going to be. One problem that Scarlett has to deal with right now as well is the potential for Dark Templar. Okay, is this shade the correct one? There's not actually that much firepower. I don't think it was necessarily the best of traits, but not a terrible one either, because, well, Zerk would love to make drones at this point. Scarlett is forced to make units that replace the units she just lost. And in the meantime, on the other side of the map, the third Nexus is done. I would love to see some pro production coming up, though. None of that is really happening here. Instead, we're going to go for an Immortal. Okay, now workers are going to come out as well. 3 at a time. Okay, so, big picture, this is where we're at. Relatively even game here, all things considered, but I am, yeah, giving the slight edge right here to NightMare, unless he loses that prism. If he loses that prism, life's not so great. Is this really better, though, than an Oracle opener? Is it really? Like, with the Oracle opener, you can get to this sort of scenario without having to jump through 17 hoops, denying that Zerking scout and warping into the tall grass and trying to deny your opponent's vision and all that. And you can take yourself a very comfortable third Nexus without being in all too much, yeah, trouble. Anyways, we're gonna go for more Adepts. Now, this is kind of cool. Normally, when the age of the Adept is over, it's done. We don't see any additional Adepts. At this point, apparently, the age of the Adept is not yet over. As a matter of fact, NightMare right now is warping in even more of them. There are a couple Banelings coming up. Actually, only one. This hatchery is dead. Yeah. The Immortals obviously help out in that fight quite a bit as well. Okay, Baneling wanted to get to the middle of that shade clump. I think this is actually working right now for NightMare, though. Yeah. Scarlett forced to take the base down south. But with this really uncomfortable, weird approach, NightMare is actually grabbing the advantage. He doesn't need to commit here, so I don't think he will. I mean, right now it's 3 base Protoss versus 2 base Zerk. I think the last thing you want to do is fight here, actually. Like, I'm pretty sure what you want to do is sit back and just make stuff. Okay, well, if we can trade armies, life's still pretty sweet, I guess. Robo Bay is on the back of this too, so I guess that NightMare fighting with a big Adept army. That is so weird. Ooh, it works out surprisingly well. Anyways, I think he wants to go for Disruptors on the back of this, or maybe even Colossi, but I think Disruptors make a little bit more sense here. Oh my god. If you can force another cancel on another one of those bases, that would be absolutely massive. The only thing I'm a little bit concerned for is that at some point those Adepts are going to trade out. Good splits. And then we're going to see a massive counter-attack from the Zerk, but NightMare is everywhere. NightMare is actually doing a great job in this game here. No cancel? No cancel. Nope. Scarlett would have already canceled that otherwise. Ay, 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 ay. So this was a relatively normal build to go for a couple years ago. And then the follow-up that NightMare went for wasn't one that we used to see back then. So Immortals together with even more Adepts. Adepts usually are deemed to be pretty terrible as soon as Roaches, Ravagers, and Banelings and all that are out. Because in a straight-up fight, they actually don't do particularly well. Anyways, Blink is not done yet. This is that counter-attack I was talking about, but this is now a full desperation move, and that is what you want to see. Unless you're a Zerg player, which I am actually. Ah, shit, I still wanted to see it. Anyways, yeah, that is rough. GG. Data C. It's gonna be our 4th map in this best of 5 series. Nightmare going across the map very quickly, forcing the 3rd hatchery out of the Zerg player first. This is one of those things that's quite annoying, but again, shouldn't really be that big of a deal. We have actually got some of those green things coming through the hatchery. There's these glowy things on the ground. I've never actually noticed that before. Probably the only person that has never noticed that. But yeah, look, there's the little glowy bursts coming out of the hatch. Interesting. There's nothing like that in the natural, right? No, there's a little bit of it at the 3rd and the 4th. We'll have to pay attention on whether or not the Nexus is also going to be glowing. Very important. Anyhow, this time around, Nightmare is going to go for a Stargate opener. Again, not the fastest possible Stargate, it seems. It seems like his gas mining in the early game is a little bit different for some reason. Anyway, might be me. Oh, it's a little fish. It's a very square, it's like a very squared off fish. It's not the most beautiful shape. Either way, we're gonna have that adept. How much damage can one adept do? I'm gonna say 1 Zergling. No, it's just scouting. Not even gonna get a Zergling. Link speed is going to finish up, so that adept has to be running back home. Speaking of Zerglings, though, apparently some of them just ran straight into the opponent's base. Not entirely sure how that took place, but at least now Scarlett knows exactly what she's playing against, and it is going to be something she will have a ton of practice. Hey, look, 1 probe going down. That's something. She wants another one. Shouldn't happen. That's gonna happen. Alright, so very annoying little Zergling harass here in the early game. Probe is gonna go for another one. In the meantime, Oracle has arrived. Okay, 1 drone, 1 larva. A little bit of HP on the hatchery. Take that. So we're just settling on harassing larva now. I guess. Problem is, with harassing larva, is that, well, the opponent will just make an extra queen. And is that really what you want to be playing against? It's gonna slow the Zerg down, I guess, ever so slightly. Not a terrible idea. So, Oracles, by the way, in case you're wondering, they are considered spellcasters. So this ability is called Pulsar Beam. And Pulsar Beam activated can deal a bunch of damage, but since it's a spell, it ignores all armor. So normally Larva in StarCraft 2 are very tanky units. You can't actually kill them very easily. If you've ever tried attacking them with another unit, it takes forever. But since the unit is primarily armor, it doesn't actually have that much HP. It's only got 25. The Oracle, since it ignores armor, can snipe it down pretty easily. There you go. There's your StarCraft 2 trivia for the day. It's gonna be a Void Ray on the back of this. Interesting. Last time I saw Scarlett playing a game on this particular map. Oh god, it's a second Stargate. Last time I saw a game of Scarlett on this particular map, that was against Gung Fu Banda. Remember that one? If you haven't seen it yet, if I don't forget, I'll add a link to it down below in the description of this video. That was an hour and like 10 minutes of Protoss versus Zerg on this particular map. And it seems to me with this Void Ray opener that may very well but Nightmare, or it may very well be what Nightmare has got in store for us here as well if he can. I've got about another hour and 10 minutes to record this video and to hopefully edit it too. I mean, the editing is very easy, but... okay. Let's see. Let's see how this goes. Hope you're ready. Hope you got yourself a drink. Queens in the meantime, though, set up in such a way that they can at the very least revenge Brenda over here in stasis. She probably doesn't remember anything when she comes out of the stasis, so it's all fine. Quite a few roaches are available right now. Are we really gonna go for like a roach queen push? I doubt it. Maybe she doesn't realize, though, that this is gonna be a lot of Void Rays. Yeah, if this is gonna be a roach queen based push, That's still quite a few queens. It's just going to be a while until they march across. There's going to be quite a few voids up in the air. As long as the queens are eliminated, then obviously the void race can get rid of everything else. Okay, so Scarlett going for an aggressive push this time around. Love to see that. Overlords are coming across too, just to help out with that creep spread. So that's why the Overlords are moving across. Overlord pooping creep just to try and transfuse itself back up to full, I guess. Queens obviously can no longer transfuse off creep. Interesting little dance. Disruptors are coming up though. Okay. Yeah, this is actually a massive Zerg force. I mean, sure, the Void Rays can kill everything after the queens are gone, but the Zerglings and the Roaches may just kill everything on the ground before that point. And honestly, I don't even know if there's enough firepower to get rid of all the queens with transfuse energy. That's huge. Cool attack right here from Scarlett. I love everything about this push. There's the battery overcharge in the back. A good amount of static defense setup as well. I like this push, but I don't know how successful it's going to be, especially now with Big Daddy Disruptor showing up. Obviously, these are slow Zerg units right now, other than the Lings. Even though there's a bunch of creep over here, most of it, I think, is being taken care of. Still, though, a lot of Zerglings are streaming across the map. It's been 11 probes, which is nice. Scarlett trying to get a little bit more, because I think at this point she's probably realizing, too, that this is not going to win the game straight up. Now, this is where I struggle whenever I play this sort of aggressive build. What do you do as a follow-up? Like, where do you go from here? She's trying to get the queens back. Did not think those queens are going to be able to go back home, but they will be. So, she's decided to go Infestation Pit. You can obviously go into a Hive. You could go into Lurker Play, for example. Brute Lords would be excellent. What about Swarm Hosts? Would that be possible? Because I've wondered about Swarm Hosts as a follow-up here. No, it's going to be for a Hive instead. Okay. There are quite a few of those games where, like, you do really well with a push, and then you think, I'm really far ahead. But if you actually look at this game objectively right now, Protoss is fine, right? This is really not that big of a deal. Protoss is totally fine. Creep spread is a little funky. If you were to tune in right now, things would be a little bit strange, but Protoss is A-okay. So I guess the Hive here is just for Viper, since there's no Hydra Den, there's no Lurker Den, there's no Spire. I would imagine the Hive is primarily to get Vipers going, to abduct the Disruptors, but also to throw some parasitic bombs right here on the Void Race. Okay, Fungal Growth is coming up, I think. Fair enough. Couple of Zerglings trying to get damage done at the 4th Nexus, but Nightmare playing it a little bit more slowly in this particular game. Now, that is an awful lot of queens. 15 queens. That's actually really nice that those queens came back home right here for Scarlett. That could have been a disaster. Defending against a lot of these units without queens becomes pretty tricky. Obviously, you can remake them, but they're not entirely free. Yeah, so it's just going to be Vipers. 4 of them. Interesting. I would imagine primarily for abductions and parasitic bombs here. Not an easy unit composition, though, to play properly, because now we're talking about an army that is Roach Ravager, Infestor, Viper, and then Queens. So we're already at 4 control groups right here for this Zerg huge. Like, this Zerg army, it's not even really that huge yet. Okay. 1 Infestor misrallied. 2nd Infestor also misrallied, but at the very least that one got a Queen out. There's the Disruptors, though, getting so much damage and good control right here by Nightmare. Keeping all of those Void Rays alive as well earlier was super nice for him, because now he gets a lot of supplemental damage. Okay, there's 1 abduction, getting rid of 1 of the Disruptors, I suppose, so that's something, but this is looking mighty fine right here for our Korean Protoss. I was almost going to say Terran, but Korean Protoss. 24 drones have gone down during all of this. I think it might be time to go back home, though, because... yeah, maybe? It doesn't look to me like this Zerg army is going to die just yet. Those Vipers are providing a lot of value. Then again, Nightmare is reinforcing this with a lot of Zealots from the Prism. Prism is going back home. The units apparently have decided to teleport back too. Okay. I think that was a slight overextension right there, though. Quite a few of those heavy hitters from Protoss did just now go down. Scarlett grabbing a good supply lead, but a lot of that supply is caught up in this. This is essentially the supply lead right over here. It's a good unit comp, but not really anymore at this stage in the game. Roaches and Ravagers synergize really nicely together with Zerglings and stuff, but this feels like an early game unit composition against someone who's playing mid game units. The queens don't care, man. There you go. They weren't concerned, not even for a moment. Oh, feedback. Ooh, yep, there's one. Okay, one abduction here. At the very least, some of those Protoss heavy hitters are okay, well, now it's getting much better. There's the Disruptor. Vipers, of course, when they abduct the Disruptor, while it's channeling that Purification Nova, they force the cancel on that ability, which is huge. Spire is coming up together with a Baneling Nest. That is not the combo we normally see, but it does make sense. I think she wants to go into both Baneling production here for some roll buys and to get rid of Zealots. But then, ultimately, I think we also want to head on over into a Brute Lord army instead. Okay. Nightmare positioning himself as if he wants to go for a 5th Nexus. Good abduction once more. Yeah, Vipers are amazingly powerful units. Yep, there's another unit. The harpooning here is insane. So again, I bring this up every time because I know there's going to be some salty Protoss players looking at this that, you know, think that spell is ridiculous. I bring it up just because of you guys, okay? Feedback outranges Vipers. So the High Templar feedback ability should always be able to grab Vipers, assuming you have the High Templar not just sitting around, but actually in the right place. Okay, here's the Protoss army once more, moving forward though. No feedbacks. Okay, there's one. You see how long the range of that was? That felt like it was ages. Anyway. Ages is now a distance, in case you're unfamiliar. Ages is my very, very favorite measurement of distance. It's like a reverse light year, which always gets me confused. Anyways, we've got ourselves additional Stargates coming up together with a fleet beacon. So ultimately, oh, this is a really good fight right here for Scarlett, though. Ultimately, I think that Nightmare does want to make that transition towards that late game army, but Roaches and Ravagers, maybe their age wasn't over just yet. Scarlett's showing us that the Vipers, can provide so much value here. Ay, 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 ay. 7 Disruptors, 9 Archons in this game. Couple of Disruptors still trailing this army as well. Zealot Warping in the main base though, being obnoxious. Okay, this is really quite good here for Nightmare. Getting some gas kills, maybe not the highest priority, but it's better than nothing. He's not paying attention, obviously, to those Zealots in the main base right now, because he's busy blinking forward here with the main army. This is actually turning out to be a really sick game now. Constant back and forth. Nicely done right here by Scarlett, clawing her way back into this game, but Nightmare's army is once again looking pretty scary here. Does he have enough to push forward right now? There's no Prism here. Prism is obviously in the main base. Additional reinforcements there could be coming up, but not a lot of anti-air in this Zerg army, other than those queens. Yeah, there's actually only one. So, not a lot of anti-air here at all, so I wouldn't mind seeing a Skytoss transition here, because Scarlett doesn't have all too much. Maybe she just wanted to get that Spire, though, in case she needed to make... Ooh, nice snipe on the Viper. Maybe she just wanted to get that Spire here to get, you know, a transition ready towards Corruptors, if that is needed. I thought it was going to be for... Oh, there is a Greater Spire. Never mind, guys. I said nothing. Lowko in the past was right. Lowko in the past, way smarter guy than me. Current Lowko is an idiot. Somehow the hatchery lives. New gases are being acquired over here. But the 5th Nexus is now up and running as well here for Nightmare, so that's good. Unless you're Scarlett, then it's not good. If you're a fan of StarCraft, though, I think it's pretty good. Because going to the rubber match would be sweet. Okay. Hello. These units are just sort of bleeding out here. Yeah. If you look right now at the units lost in this game, it's relatively even, actually, all things considered. The problem is that normally it's Zerg who's got that eco lead, but this time around that's not really the case. Those Vipers, though, have been amazing until just now, because now they're dead. Not as amazing to be dead. Ooh. I don't think there's such a thing as a Martyr Viper. I don't think the Zerg units are going to feel particularly inspired by seeing the death of one of their Vipers. But anyways, this is where things get really scary, though, for Scarlett. Yeah, she's going Brute Lords right now. Whoop-de-doo, we're countering the ground army. NightMare is already no longer playing a ground army. I mean, he might go for some more units here on the ground eventually, but wouldn't be surprised if we're going to see primarily a focus right now on Skytle's units. Okay. Skytle's units are, of course, very powerful. They don't have any upgrades yet, do they? Oh, they have actually already +1 too. I love that. That's really nice. Yeah, that's what we want to see. They're waiting. In the shadows. Scarlett doesn't have that bank, right? That we normally like to see here for Zergs at this point in the game, where they can suddenly whip out like 20 Corruptors. She doesn't have that level of money at all. And as a matter of fact, she's only got 2 Corruptors right now. And other than that, together with 1 Queen, and I guess Corrosive Vials and maybe Parasitic Bombs, that's the only anti-air available. None of those particularly reliably, and we have 4 carriers coming up. I've got a feeling that we are arriving at the point of this game. Another snipe. Good kills right here, actually, on the Vipers. Yeah, 7 have gone down. That's huge. I've got a feeling that we are coming up to the point where suddenly NightMare is going to reveal his army. He's going to be, ta-da! You know, that's basically what he's going to say. And as soon as Scarlett hears the ta-da, she realizes that there's absolutely no way that she can kill those units at this point. She does have a little bit of money right now, but she's, yeah, spending, what little Corruptor army she got. Okay, now she sees it. Yeah, what small amount of Corruptor she had, she spent on making Brute Lords. Oh, okay, Purification Novas. Getting quite a bit of work in, but even though the armies on the ground are trading out, the real tell right now are these carriers. Oh, we never had Psionic Storm done. Okay, that's actually a big deal. I thought we could see some storms on top of all of those. So we just had the High Templar for Archons and feedback. I love that. That's not something we normally see. Anyhow, yeah, the storms right here would be fantastic, of course, against pretty much everything, but especially the Corruptors. Now that Zerg is making a lot of those flying units, though, that only attack air to air, NightMare is going back to making ground units. Very nice. He knows what he's forcing out very well. Storm not done yet, though, and that is honestly a little bit scary. Without Storm, this is not nearly as... it's not nearly as good for Protoss here. At this point, all the High Templar are dead as well. Oh, no. Did NightMare just make a huge overextension? Scarlett smashed her piggy bank to try and get as many of those Corruptors going as possible. A very close battle. Interceptor count is still relatively big, but obviously when you kill a carrier, the interceptors go with it as well. Archon on the ground, together with a couple of Zealots here, dealing as much damage as possible. And now the reinforcing Stalkers are marching across the creep too. And Scarlett realizes the situation that she's in, and NightMare wins game number 4. Okay, so it is indeed time for the rubber match. Excited to see what's going to end up going down right here on Stargazers, as the score has been evened up. The first 2 games seemed heavily in favor of Scarlett. Honestly, she seemed like one bridge too far for NightMare. But NightMare has definitely shown us what he's capable of. I mean, that game number 3, maybe it was just me, but it made me feel a little uncomfortable, right? The way he was playing, it felt really flimsy. But game number 4 was solid. Scarlett definitely, yeah, just in trouble in that game, and NightMare played better overall, which is really cool to see. That was a super dynamic game as well. Honestly, that may be one of my favorite games of Protoss vs. Zerg I've casted recently. That was a sick match. Anyhow, it all comes down right now to Stargazers, and yeah. Do we have any other tricks up our sleeves here? NightMare once again arriving right here at the at the Cybernetics Core Tech without the gas to go for a Twilight Council. So are we gonna go there? No? Are we gonna go for... No, we are. I don't like that, man. Like, I assumed he was gonna play Twilight once again because that seemed to be his go-to. So, okay, here's the thing. Normally, whenever we saw Twilight Council play, we would see the Twilight Council starting up right when the Cybercore finishes, right? In this particular case, Nightmare decided to go for a Twilight Council like what? It felt like it was at least 4 minutes. I know the game hasn't been going on for that long yet, but like it felt like it was forever since the Cybercore finished up and the Twilight Council started up. Honestly, must have been like a 45-second delay. Which really is kind of weird. But it's throwing the Zerg players off as well, because against the most optimized version of this build, again, Scarlett will know exactly what to do. But then by the time she thinks, okay, well, that build is no longer coming, it still shows up. Which can get really funky. Anyway. Slow Zerglings are running across the map now that they have got their wings, though. They are ready to engage once again. They would love to get into the main base, but this time around, Nightmare is in, part of the wall, so. That one Stalker here. I feel like the Zerglings would be able to wiggle between its legs, still straight through to the main base, but not gonna happen. Roach Warren coming up at a conventional time as well. Third hatchery at this point is done. How many workers does Scarlett dare to get away with at this point in the game? She's scouting with an Overlord, actually, but she hasn't seen all too much. She's headed in the right direction. Okay, now she sees the Prism, assuming she looked at the mini-map right at that point. And now she knows exactly what she's going up against. Okay. So Overlords are prepped in advance. Zerglings are scouting what's going on, though. And you ideally want to save your money here until that Roach Warren is finished, so you can actually make a bunch of roaches. Problem is, don't know if she has that luxury. Just Zerglings, though, against Glaive the Depth, feels a little bit shaky. Okay, roaches are coming up. Yeah, we're gonna get a bunch of roaches going, but once more, Adepts are ready to shade around the bases. That is not a good start, though. That first shade is very, very important. Don't think that that one is gonna achieve all too much either. No. More Adepts. Yeah, could commit. Problem is that you know that the roaches are gonna not be too far behind. But if you don't know exactly where they are, life gets a little tricky. Okay, so last time we saw Nightmare playing those Adepts, he decided to double down on the Adept production, which was really weird. Second Robo coming up. In-base Expo. Maybe that's why. It always seems to me that against Zerg, Adepts are not really that great of a fighting unit. They're very much so an harassment unit, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like Mutas versus, for example, Terran or whatever. They're really good at fighting, technically speaking, but realistically, we mostly see them as an harassment tool. Scarlett, by the way, and this is kind of risky from her. Scarlett completely ignored the chance that the opponent could go for a Dark Templar transition. We've already seen Nightmare being very fond of DTs in this particular game. I think he could have made some if he wanted to. But yeah, Scarlett did not have a lair, she did not have Spore Crawler, she had nothing. So to put it all on the line for just a couple Dark Templar to ruin it all would have been kind of sad, but maybe Scarlett had some sort of intel that allowed her to make that decision, but as far as I can tell, she didn't really know too much. I guess she scouted with an Overlord, but she didn't see too far. Right? She didn't even see where the pylon was, so I don't know. Anyways, chances taken. And it worked out decently well so far, losing 0 workers. As a matter of fact, up to this point, Nightmare has lost nothing. Yeah, good control. Keeping those units around. Disruptors on the back of this, so that's what the second Robo was for. Together with Blink, as well as the +1 ground weapons. In the meantime, Scarlett is going for a Spire. This, I think, will be mostly for Muta play. Mutas are fantastic for harassing. We've seen Serral using them quite a bit. And I like them quite a bit myself as well. I think they're very powerful. Especially when the opponent doesn't really know exactly what they're playing against, right? And again, with an Oracle opener, you could at the very least throw a bunch of Revelations around. But what are the odds that Nightmare is going to see this right over here? Not very big. Not very big at all. Scarlett, by the way, going for a much quicker Baneling speed this time around as well. I think that's probably because of that previous game we saw. Just the depths alone will be, yeah, kind of scary, I suppose. But as soon as, like, roly-poly Banelings are out, you can destroy them pretty easily. Okay, so I'm interested to find out how much damage those Mutalisks can deal. Because up to this point, it's a relatively even game. If Nightmare moves out right now and he decides to go for a big attack, and then suddenly mutas are in the main base, life obviously becomes a little tricky. Then again, Scarlett sees the move out at this point. Is she brave enough to make mutas despite all of this? The disruptors are super scary here. Okay, road speed is finished. Okay, I think she's given up on the muta play for at least a little while. Then again though, what are we spending all the resources on? Are we gonna go Ravagers? That observer here scouts exactly what's going on. Right now, Nightmare sees that he's not really going up against anything too scary. Oh, that is a juicy hit right there. That observer being the absolute king in this battle. Well, the disruptor, I guess, but he got the assist at the very least. Beautiful moves. Good splits as well. And oh, okay. Scarlett wanted to go for a sudden group of mutas, but Nightmare hit her right at the correct moment. And because of that, there's simply not enough stuff for the Zerg to hold on. She GG's out with nearly 2,500 resources in the bank. Now, after this game, for those of you curious, Nightmare got eliminated all the way in the quarterfinals, where he lost 3-0 over Bunny. But considering Nightmare initially went out in the very first group stage of the tournament and he clawed himself all the way back to the quarterfinals, that is honestly unheard of. Very well done.